Welcome to the Valuu Maker Podcast. My name is Ryan Purvis. I'm your host, supported by Heather Bicknell, as we meet with the people that make the digital workspace work. It's about the technology, it's about improving people's work experience and finding the return on value. Thanks for joining us on the show. Please like and subscribe and share with your colleagues. It helps us grow the podcast, and we appreciate any help you can give us.
David, to the Valuu Makers Podcast. Do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Hi, I'm David Hirschfeld. I founded Tekyz, my current company, almost 18 years ago. We do software development. Would you like me to go into my history or?
Yeah, tell us a little bit
sure.
about what you guys do and your history. Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah. So how I came to where I am now. So I started out literally in the late 80s in the software world doing IBM mainframe sales, and then ended up teaching myself development because it always took me too long to get a systems engineer scheduled for presentation, and they weren't as good as I felt they should be. So they weren't really connecting with clients. So I ended up teaching myself the products and doing all my own demos. Then I ended up getting hired at Texas Instruments, and I did the same thing there with their big case, which is computer-aided systems engineering products, for several years, doing all my own demos and building prototypes. And then I ended up running projects for leaving Texas Instruments and ran projects for big companies like Intel, Motorola, Allied Signal, Arizona Public Service, until I started my own startup in the early 90s, logistics, route distribution, inventory management. And I did that while I was running projects for these other companies for a few years, until our company grew to where my partner and I had to go full time because we had a bunch of employees, and grew it despite every effort. And despite every effort on both of our parts, we grew it to 800 customers in 22 countries and sold it in 2000 to a publicly traded Toronto firm. And I was VP of products for that company for the next several years, until I left there, cast about for a couple of years, and then started Tekyz. We've worked with a lot of different size companies in a lot of different industries, but primarily there's been a lot of startups, over 90 startups during those last 18 years. And I thought I knew what made startups successful because I had a successful one. And I actually was probably more luck than anything else in that first one, because there were many startups I thought should be successful that failed, and one in particular, my most successful, that I didn't think would make it. And I started to learn the patterns of why the few that were successful, and why the vast majority that failed, why they failed. Anyway, that's led me to where I am now.
So a couple questions. So funnily enough, I was trying to pronounce Tekyz a few times because Tekyz for me as a South African means sneakers.
That's funny.
And it's Tekkies.
Okay.
And then obviously, Tekyz. Sorry, go ahead.
In the US, Tekyz typically means a bunch of people that are technical sitting around talking about. Right.
Yeah. And that's what I thought you were trying to get with the combination of letters. So that was the first thing. The other thing that I was interested in is you've come together with this methodology, Launch First, and obviously reading your history with some of the stuff you mentioned already. What I was trying to wonder about was, did you always envision being at this point? Sort of, if you look back to where you started out, did you always think you'd be involved in startups and building software quickly, or was it basically you kept falling into the same pattern, and then you recognized the pattern and you went, oh, actually, this is the pattern?
A little of both. So I knew I was going to do custom software projects when we started Tekyz, because that's what it was all about. Yeah. I figured along the way I would also do some of my own startups.
Okay.
Right. But the startup community has always been really interesting to me. I mean, I started out in enterprise, right? But I find startup community a lot more interesting when they're really trying to solve a problem that's close to them, as opposed to, I've got a cool idea for the next social network. Those aren't as interesting to me. I know those are going to fail, and 1 in 1,000 of those will find a path to revenue. But when somebody's trying to solve a real world problem, especially when it's a sophisticated problem, a complex problem to solve, that really kind of gets my energy going. And it doesn't really matter even the industry that it's in, because it's the problem-solving process, whether it's a workflow automation issue or whether it's a fuzzy logic issue or whether it's a whatever it is. I know that it brings value to the stakeholders in that industry in a way that they didn't have that value before.
And are you guys getting involved in augmenting a team? Or are you taking over from a team? Or are you just being a net new, we'll do this thing to prove that it works for you as a resource project?
So we're technically working with non-technical founders, sometimes technical founders, but usually non-technical founders who either are creating something new or they've built something and launched it, but now they really need a bigger, more galvanized team to do it. They might have had one developer working on it before, and they really need a team because, there's a lot of pitfalls that you have if you don't have all the different people involved with their unique expertise, the idea of team, of running projects. Anyway, so we are usually the outsourced team, if you want to think of it like that. And very often we remain that for that client for many years.
Okay, that was the other question, is do you transition it over to the team, sort of help them potentially deliver an MVP? They might raise some money, then they bring their own team in and you hand it over, or do you just carry on?
It depends on the client's needs, depends on the investor's requirements, if they need to bring things in-house, right? But I mean, we want to continue on, all right? We get very personally invested in these projects. We have an awful lot of intellectual property around the product. I mean, we never, like one of the rules we have is we'll never take on two clients that are competitive in any way with each other. So if we're working with one client, even if they're small and some big client comes along, but it's a clear competitor to the small client, we just walk away from that because it's too much of a conflict of interest. And that rarely ever happens. It has happened a couple times, and we had to say no to projects for that reason. Yeah. But we don't want to be in a position where now our clients aren't going to trust us because but they're telling us they're going to find out that we're working on something else that's in a competitive situation with them, and then we have to say no, we've got a the Chinese wall between us, and that becomes a trust issue. Anything that creates a potential trust issue with our clients, we just don't go there. I'll give you an example for that, and this is something most software companies don't do. When we started out, we used to do only fixed price, and we stopped doing mostly fixed price. We still do, but we do it's a small percentage of our projects because it's restrictive for our clients, because then we have to hold the scope based on what we're bidding. The clients never understand all of the requirements that they actually need until we really dig into the design of the product. So then we went to time and materials, and we had a blended rate. And then clients were uncomfortable with the blended rate when we got to the end of the project, and most of the work was testing and QA, and they felt like they were paying too much for that. And even though they paid a lot less for the front end, it didn't matter, right? And so I said, okay, fine. So then we started doing individual rates for the specialty of the person who's on the project, right? And then they said, that's great, but why did this person work 180 hours this month? That seems like an awful lot of hours. What did they do? And it was like, then we have to go. Then I said, okay, forget that. So we are really meticulous about timesheets, about tracking that. And we do it in we have a lot of automation, so it doesn't put a burden on the developers. But we get every single day, we know what they worked on at a high level, as well as at the detail, because our project tracking, they're updating it. And we attach those timesheets to every invoice every month for every client. We're the only company I know that does that. I'm sure we're not the only one, but it's a level of transparency. And I did that because I don't want that client to have a trust issue with me, because there's no reason to. And we're meticulous about what we do, and we procedures and protocols and tracking, and which is also you can see that when we show clients how we do status reports, our weekly status reports. The level of detail is way beyond what you see in most shops. I just don't want there ever to be a question about, are they doing their job? What are they Am I being billed for the work they're doing? Those sorts of things. So I
Well, it's the
don't
wrong
like the way that
focus.
feels. Yeah. Pardon me?
It's the wrong focus. I mean, if everyone's focusing about that, then you're not focusing on, are you getting value from what you're building? Is the tool
Right.
delivering what it should be doing?
Right. And I talk with a lot of other people that run software development firms. Most of them just sort of skirt those issues. They figure that, client will ask that and they'll just sort of skirt the issue instead of, because it takes a lot of discipline and protocol and culture to be able to track things that in that detailed a manner every single week, every single day, every single month.
Yeah.
So, and if you go to my website, at the very top, it's kind of my marquee is hyper exceptional software development team.
Mhm.
But I don't expect anybody to believe me because I say that, right?
Yeah.
So if you're really an exceptional team, then you have all this evidence that are just artifacts you produce naturally because you're doing things at an exceptional level that typical software teams don't do. Even the way we do estimates, and I'm not, I feel now I'm pitching myself, and it wasn't why I wanted to be interviewed by you, but it's important because I think, whether you're a startup thinking about creating a new product or whether you're an existing company looking at it really kind of changing the nature of your team, or you're trying to build a product and you're struggling with a team. Those are some of our favorite projects. And you realize that it's taken way too long. It's not going to get any better. It really matters that if, let's say you do switch to another team, that it's a dramatic shift, right?
Yeah.
From what you were experiencing. And so that's partly why it's some of our favorite projects, because people
Yeah.
realize really quickly the difference.
Yeah. And look, I mean, part of this is to pitch yourself. It's the value you bring to your customers. And I think, I mean, I do have a friend who runs a dev shop, and they do also have meticulous time sheeting and it's by the line and all the rest of it. In fact, sometimes he would be frustrated. We'd be chatting with me, like, I've spent so much time building a timesheet management system. I should have just sold this as a product,
Right.
because it becomes such a thing. But I think, as we move down this route of automation, more and more intelligent automation, generated code and all the rest of it, that's even more sophisticated than it was 10, 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Understanding the metrics around what we're actually saving and being able to exponentially
Yeah.
do, people can't grasp. If you've never
People
coded,
what?
people can't
I think,
grasp. If you've
yeah.
never
Oh,
coded,
no, they can't. Right. Yeah.
they've never understood that sometimes to fix a problem that you've coded could take 3 days or could take 5 minutes
Right.
because of whatever. And as we start
And that's not
generating more,
AI. That's just the nature of the problem, right? That you're
yes,
fixing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, you could have a timing issue between two APIs that are calling each other, and there's a thing, and you've got to factor it in, and you've got to handle retries and whatever. I mean, that could be one scenario. But the thing that I think will happen is, as we start generating more and more code, that's going to talk to more and more other things that have been generated. You're almost going to be obfuscated by what's been done, and the time to troubleshoot that and to figure that out.
Mm.
It will be important too to know why you're spending so much time fixing the problem.
Right.
So I think being meticulous is important. I think it's an important part of the fundamentals.
Oh, yeah.
Looking
It's critical.
and looking at your launch first methodology,
Yeah.
and I'm primarily looking at some of the diagrams. And I love your animations, by the way. I think those are
Thank
awesome.
you.
What did you do those in?
Those are animated vector graphics. I think they were done in Flash, but they're Lottie files is what we
Oh,
created.
they're Lotties. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they're Lotties.
Yeah. I love them, but I mean,
Not Flash. I mean, Fire Flash. I'm going back like 15 years now. Yeah, right. Yeah,
but
they're Lottie files, so they're animated vector graphics.
Okay, no, they're brilliant. I mean, I could watch them. I could actually have them on my side screen and just watch them, like fish swimming in an aquarium.
Thank you.
Anyway, so the thing that I love about your diagrams is you've got this flow of time, which will be based on ideation, whatever it is. But then you've got the barrier of viability. And it's very similar to what I have with the value methodology that we use, which is probably very similar, where there's always going to be these balancing points or levers to what you're doing. And at some point you've crossed that barrier that it's ready for it to show its value. So if 1-to-1 was it cost you one and it delivered one, then that's not going to be a great return on your project.
That's a failure. That's a failure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because you always want the return to be a little bit higher, but 2x, 5x, whatever it is. And
we use a number. We use 3x as sort of the golden rule. You need to be at 3-to-1 cost of acquisition versus lifetime value.
Yes.
Or the other
and
way
in your
around. Yeah.
And your lifetime value, what do you normally put that as?
What I mean, that's part of the calculation. It depends on the product, the customer. So, and then you're doing estimates on what that lifetime value would be when you get a customer, right? It may be short initially just because you don't have product solution fit, even if you've got product market fit, right? But you can usually estimate what that lifetime value is for a customer within a reasonable range. And so when you get the customer, how much did it cost you to get them? And if you don't have a 3-to-1 ratio, you don't have enough enough profit to be able to then put energy back into the system to scale.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. That's awesome, because that's the whole loop, the feedback loop thing. So when I looked at this and I looked at sort of the way you change things. So you've got your revenue bar at the bottom. You got your expenses going up and your risk at the top, because I think a lot about this is risk mitigation.
Yeah.
How are you educating your customer? They've
the customer being the software founder.
Yeah. So whoever your customer is, how do you start the conversation that they get to trust you?
Okay. So it's usually not a trust issue. I mean, they usually, just because I've been doing this a long time, and people recognize, not that I know how I'm going to be the right way to launch their business, but that they're at least that I have a valid position from which that I'm coming. Well, let me say it a different way. Most founders, when they come to me, with the rare exception, are wearing the black robe, right? They have a vision. They've got this product idea that was probably started out with a problem that they were trying to solve, right? And then they created this automation or product concept that they know is going to solve that problem, and they believe that everybody's going to need it and want it, right? And that's like the kiss of death for a founder. So I gently peel that black robe off, right? Because it's basically, right now, it's a religion. They believe it. There's no proof.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I slowly kind of wrap them in a white coat and say, you're now a clinician. If you believe it, then you need to prove it. And whatever assumptions you've made are nothing more than assumptions until you have metrics and validation, and enough metrics and validation that you can predict that it's predictable as you're out in the market and you grow. So, and the only way you can prove that you've got product market fit, and product market fit means people want to pay you for your product at least at that 3-to-1 ratio or higher, then the only way you can prove that is that you're selling your product to customers and they're paying you money. And the biggest mistake founders make is that they wait way too long to ask customers to pay them money. Usually they'll get their MVP done in 6 months to a year, depending on the level of sophistication of the product and their ability to stay focused on delivery of that product. And then they put it out for free betas, which I'm not a fan of free beta. I'm not a fan of free betas. And then they're getting feedback, very often misleading feedback, because these are not invested customers. And they're making changes and making shifts, trying to get to product solution fit before they have product market fit. And they spend another year and a half, sometimes anywhere from 18 months to 3 years before they actually are ready to drive a stake in the ground and do a formal process of launch and marketing, which is crazy. And that's when they find out they have no idea who their customer is. People aren't buying it. They don't know how to message. That's the wrong product. It has the wrong features. There's the value proposition isn't, they can't articulate it in a way that anybody cares. And now they're in panic mode because they've spent all this money, all this time. They've got this big roadmap of features, but nobody's paying for the product now. And they're trying to pivot and figure out the right message. And this is another 1, 2, 3 years slog down the hill until they fail. And I've seen this happen over and over and over and over again. And they could have easily figured this out 3-4 months into this by doing a pre-launch sale model, which is what Launch First is. So Launch First, we say, forget MVPs. MVPs are once you're sure you know who your customer is and that they'll buy it, then you can build your MVP. Before that, you need to have a really elaborated animated design that looks like a real product that you can put in front of customers and ask them to buy in early. And if they won't buy in early, and you do that by offering them some kind of high value proposition. And if you're solving a big enough problem that costs enough to the customer that they know when this product comes out, they're going to have to get it. And you've shown them a demo that's realistic enough that it looks like you've already built the product, even though it's just a very animated design mock-up. Because you don't want them to ask the question, how do I know you can build this? And if the design prototype you're showing them is realistic enough, that question never happens. So then the question is, can you offer them a high enough value opportunity to buy in early and the cost of the problem you're solving is big enough? If not, you're not going to probably sell the product when it comes out. So you do things like lifetime licenses. People go, lifetime license, then I won't ever get any more money from that customer. Well, yeah, you probably will, but if let's say you're selling lifetime licenses for some big high value B2B thing, and you're charging $1,500 for it, and you can sell you sell 100 of these, right? Because the value proposition is so big. You raised $150,000, which would fund your development, and you're giving away an immeasurable fraction of a percent of your market, typically, right? Instead of 10, 15, 20% equity to an investor. And all that time you spend trying to recruit that investor, not any of that moves your business forward. Whereas these pre-launch sales, you're basically launching a sales and marketing engine around your business, learning how to sell it, learning how to talk to customers. And if nobody's buying it, you pivot quick and cheap because you're getting feedback why nobody wants it, right? You're not hitting the right market, the right product. You're not going after the right high value opportunity. And you can pivot 2 or 3 or 4 times in the space of, a few months. And if you still can't find any way to revenue, then you can say to yourself, I fail fast and cheap. And for anybody who's a startup founder, they should pray for fast and cheap failure if they can't find a path to success, because the alternative is incredibly expensive and a big portion of your life gets tossed.
Yeah, I'm nodding because this is exactly what I've gone through with Valuu. We've built a product. We're at that point now where we still quite haven't closed the loop on a few things. And I was thinking about lifetime licenses. I was thinking, well, let me go and give it away for whatever the number is for lifetime. And I do think you will get paid by those same customers in the future because they're buying the core product and you can keep adding on stuff. It's how HubSpot works to a large extent.
Right. But who cares but even if they don't, you're still generating revenue and you're getting customers using it who are invested in the product. And so you can focus on product solution fit at that point if they're buying it. So, yeah.
No, I think it's a fantastic way to do it. And
now, one of the key success factors of this is that you nail down who that early adopter is, and what's the one or two or three at most problems that you're solving for them, and that because the early adopter, if you think about it, when you're building a product, usually you have all this broad number of niches that you can market it to.
Yeah.
But you can't market to, 15 or 20 different niches when you're new, right? You can market to one. And this is another huge mistake that a lot of startups make is they're too broad so I spent a lot of time with founders on what is the root problems that you're solving. And before we do that, we have to say, who are all the niches that you can market to? And if you're standing in that stakeholder's shoes, how do you articulate the problem so that they feel threatened by it? All right. It's not just, I have trouble with this issue, but because I have trouble with this issue, it's causing me this, and that may affect my career or or I'll lose to competitors or whoever the stakeholder is. Why do they feel threatened by that problem. So you have to ask that question, why does this matter like 3 times, 4 times to get to the root level thing? And why does that matter? Because they won't pay attention to you if they don't think you understand what they're struggling with, right? What's really keeps them up at night. So, but if you nail that really well, then they'll lean forward and they'll say, I hate that. Can you actually fix that for me? Right. And now you've got their attention. And once you've got that, then the solution should just be the natural mitigation of that, the problem mitigation. So who is that? And how you figure this out is a stakeholder that's struggling with a problem there's 2 factors that you need to measure. One is how much do they feel that problem impacts them personally, right? That is like they feel threatened. What's that actual threat? And the second one is how much does that problem actually cost them? Those are independent numbers, because you can have somebody with a really big cost, but everybody in our industry deals with that same problem. My boss isn't going to care if I try to solve that because it just doesn't matter. And even if I show him these numbers, he's going to go, that's not as important as growing our business or whatever, right? Big cost, but no perceived impact or low perceived impact. And the opposite's possible. God, I hate that. It drives me nuts. I waste so much of my day on that. But then when you quantify the value, it's like, yeah, but it's only costing me, I can't really justify much money to buy it. And so you can't charge much. So what you're looking for is both those numbers are really high for the root level problems that person's struggling with. And when you find that, then you know how to talk to them about the problem, you know how to charge for it, you know how to explain the value proposition, right? You know how to reach them, who that person is. When you got that, that's when you test. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I totally get it, because the way that I would normally cost for that would be take a third of that price that you come up with, and that's roughly your indicative
It
price
may be
to
a
go
third,
with.
it may be a fifth, it may be a tenth. If it's like it does what it's the number that gets that person to start to go, I don't know that this is a really good, right? It's whatever that number is, right? Yeah, exactly.
And I guess the question is, those 1 to 3 things that you mentioned, the 1 to 3 problems, how do you determine? You might have 10 problems on the list.
Right. Well, you usually do 10 to 12 to 13 problems on your list because of all the different niches that you might market this to, right? And so you do a scoring. So like a lot of methodologies have this concept of discovery interviews, but it's siloed and subjective. So like you put your interview questions together, right? And then you have a discovery session, right? Where you go out and you call people and usually it's not very niche specific. And so you're calling people across niches and you're getting mixed feedback and very often being taken in the wrong direction in terms of trying to figure out what matters. Also, you're not focusing on their problems in these discovery interviews. You're focusing on some problems and your solution. So what I say is that whole concept throw out the window. You got to figure out who the niches are. Once you do that, you figure out all the root problems. Then some of the niches you may know really well because you may have worked in those niches, right? Others you don't know anything about. The ones you know, you can kind of score. And I have a whole scoring methodology for how we do this. It's all metrics driven. You score each of the problem statements for that niche, in terms of impact. One sheet is impact only. And then, but if there's a niche that you're not that familiar with, or maybe a little familiar, but not completely, then you call 1 or 2 stakeholders in that niche and you ask them about the problems you focus on the problems. What the problems that you struggle with? Here's some problems that we've identified in your industry. How much do you perceive that those impact you on each of the problems? Are there other problems that we missed related to this? Right. And it's niche specific. So just 1 or 2 is all you need in that niche. So you end up doing a lot of iterative discovery. You do that on impact and you do that on a separate sheet where we just do cost, same thing. And then you bubble chart those things together. You take the top 3 problems from a cost perspective for each niche, and they're not the same problem. And then you go to the score sheet for and pull those problems and sum up the score on that side. And now you're going to get a bubble chart that takes each niche and floats it up to the upper right or lower left or different places in a four slice quadrant. The ones in the upper right are your likely early adopters. And then we do deep dives on the top two or three to figure out which one really is, because there may be reasons why one that floats way up to the upper right is a bad early adopter. Like might be CEOs of Fortune 500, the sales cycle is really long, the cost to reach them is super high, that drops them out as an early adopter, things like that. And others, they get promoted higher. So, yeah.
I love it. It's very similar to what I do with Value. And the quadrant, even to the point of quadrants, although we've gone from 4 to 6 quadrants now, but that's just because we found there was a need for a middle one or a middle column. And what I love about what you're doing is you're prioritizing and you're getting the sequence right inherently, because you can start seeing where there's weight, and it's moving away from opinion to evidence-based decisions, which is always hard because everyone has an opinion, but no one really wants to trust the evidence.
Right.
But you can get around that when you have more of it.
It's much easier to trust the evidence when you're documenting the metrics.
Yes.
And then you can chart this, and then all of a sudden it's like, wasn't really thinking that was the niche that we should be going after, but now that's starting to make a lot more sense. Yeah.
And what sort of capture mechanism do you do for this? Do you have your own tools you guys have built, or are you using tools that in the industry?
This is the hardest part, because this is a very tedious process for founders to go through. They don't want to. They want to get to the product and they think if they build it, it'll be easier to sell. And it just doesn't work like that. Yeah. So, right. I mean, and we know there's so many examples of this in the B2B SaaS. I do this. You either do the sales in a webinar manner or a one-to-one manner, depending on your reach and the value, because these can be very expensive pre-launch sales, or, it could be like, let's say in a clinical trial. This is one of the ones we've done, clinical trial software, where these were $250,000 pre-launch sales, and they would get free implementation at no cost, which usually costs $500,000 and so to them that was a huge value, and it was a new pharmaceutical product for a small boutique pharmaceutical maker, that sort of thing. We sold 2 licenses at $250,000 each. The pre-launch, there was no software yet, but we had a design prototype that was just killer. So they thought they knew what they were going to get, and they didn't need the software for like 9 months, but they had to make those commitments early, because that's how clinical trials work. And then another one was real estate investment portfolio manager product, which we sold 23 licenses in 60 days and generated $68,000 in those 68. And now we had 23 clients. One of those sales was like $21,000, was a company that was creating a hedge fund. They hadn't created it yet, but they were creating a hedge fund that was going to be buying up all these apartment units, and they bought into it. So, and again, we're giving away literally an immeasurable fraction of a percent of the market. So it's great. We're bringing revenue forward. A third one was for aerospace parts distributors, maintaining the history of products in assemblies, and those assemblies become products in other assemblies, and you have to have all these certificates all the way from a nut all the way up to a 747. So there's millions of these certificates, and the parentage of these certificates has to be maintained, and it's a big deal, and it's very hard to do, and there was no system to do this previously. And sometimes something would happen, like there would be a fuel leak in an F-15, and because there was a shipment that didn't have all the certificates, the history of certificates, they literally had to spend like $100 million to pull the fuel systems out of like 30 of these F-15s. That's the kind of impact that this kind of thing, and that's a big one. Some are very, very small. But anyway, so we sold this system, 3 of them. We did 3 demos, sold all 3 for $15,000 each. And so, I mean, it can be anything, right?
Yeah.
It can be it depends on If it's a mass product, then crowdfunding kind of approach like Kickstarters and things like that is better. If it's
Yeah.
really inexpensive product and you're trying to get mass market adoption, prove that there's a mass market for it. But for SaaS, high value SaaS products, then this is like the only way to, and I can't tell you how many of the 90 plus clients that I've worked with failed because they were 2 years in before they tried doing any real serious sales.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I mean, because then you're doing desperate sales, and that never goes well with a customer. Just a couple questions. Let's go back to the sort of tooling. So
Uh,
your
yeah.
approach with your customers.
Yeah.
Are you guys using your own frameworks that you've built to build things quickly for them, or are you starting everything pretty much fresh, so you're not diluting or sharing IP from other projects across different customers?
We don't share IP from other customers. We reuse common components, right? That we might build and enhance in a customer, but they're not IP of any kind. But for the most part, we're building most everything from scratch. We have components that we've built that are common that we just built out and created a lot of flexibility in them, and we reuse those. In particular, like in authentication, permission management, role-based roles and permissions, all that stuff. These are things that are fairly large efforts, but we've built them many times, and so we have really good componentry around this. So it doesn't, we can snap them in and customize them for a particular client, and tenant management for distributed systems that distribute role and management down in end level. Like I'm a corporation and I have distributors, and my distributors have distributors, and each one wants their own portal, and it just kind of where it's kind of rolling downhill. Those sorts of things. Yeah, those frameworks.
So, and what are your thoughts on the sort of low code, no code world? You got your bubbles in units, those guys.
There's a product that we use. It's an offshore product called Continuo that we have used in a few projects, and it's really pretty amazing. And you can build anything with it. So it's not like Bubble, where you're really kind of limited in the kind of framework and design and functionality. You can build anything with it. But with now, and we've done a few projects with that, which we really like, but we're finding that with AI now, the need for the low code stuff is much less required than it was. So we've been doing a lot. This has been a big thing for us in the last 6 months, and in particular in the last few weeks, is using AI to help us develop systems and code. And then now we've been benchmarking the difference in terms of when we use AI and how we do it, and documenting from a protocol perspective as a team how we accomplish this and generate the code. And the benchmarks we're getting are pretty amazing. So one of the things that we're building a bunch of products internally right now. One of them is the niche analysis tool I was talking about, because founders get really fatigued doing that. So we're building an AI model for doing that niche analysis, and basically building out the scoring, same methodology, but just where AI is deriving all this for you with your, in a feedback iterative process. We're building and we're using AI to develop that system and it will be an AI system. Also, another one, which is kind of funny, is because I'm out in the market, I have a lot of referral partners, right? That's one of the reasons why I started podcasting, was to basically find people in my world that I can refer projects to, that can refer projects to me, and then managing and tracking all the referral partners and the referral fees that they generate, and all that becomes a pain. It's fine with 3 or 4 or 5, but when you have 10 or 15 or 20, then all of a sudden it's really hard, because you don't want somebody to refer a project to you and you forget who referred the project, or you don't remember what the agreement was, or you're not accruing referral fees once the client starts to become a paying client, right? So we're building a referral partner portal. It's not an AI model, but we're using AI to build the tool. I mean, we're using CodeGen AI tools to build it, and from scratch, all of it. The UI, the back end, and we require that it's built in a very scalable manner. So everything is containerized and microservices and serverless, and which is how we build all our systems. So that you can, when we launch an MVP, it scales day one. And we didn't used to do that because the overhead was too much, but now it's just part of our DNA. So, but we're building all that from AI, and it's amazing how quickly we're able to assemble this product and build it. So we're benchmarking this, and now I'm having to go to all my clients and update all of our estimates to our clients in terms of what it's going to, some of the ones that we have proposals out to. And I said, now I never had the benchmark, so I was always very conservative before. I knew we were getting benefits, but I couldn't really quantify it. Now we can quantify it. It's been pretty striking.
So give me a feel. Is it 10 times faster? Is it 5 times faster? 100 times faster?
Okay. So with this app, and we're still working out some of the bugs in the workflow and how this is done, in particular on the UI side. Although we're getting much better at how we control that and get AI to basically do the, I don't know that we're getting as much of a benefit on the UI part, just in terms of just creating the screens and designs, is we have a really, really exceptional designer who's very fast. If that weren't the case, then yeah, we're getting fantastic. Then we'd be getting great benefits. But on the back end side, so we developed for our MVP, we developed all of the server code, all the business rules and backend code in this serverless microservices containerized architecture, probably 6 days of effort. The front end is probably taking us 3 or 4 days just because we're fighting with the UI generation tools. In fact, that one I took over on myself because I want this UI to look a certain way. And then it'll take another day and a half to basically implement all the APIs for the front end to the back end. So we started this mid last week. We expect on Monday we'll have an MVP to start to test, Monday or Tuesday.
Wow.
I mean, it's like, what? Yeah. And it's not a super sophisticated application, but it's not a simple one either. I mean, it has a decent amount of functionality in the MVP. I can add referral partners. I can add referrals. They can log in. They get their own dashboard. They can add referrals. They can see the status of the referrals as we update the status. They can see how much has been accrued, and they can then they can become a referral partner. This won't include the SaaS front end to it yet, but they can become a referral. I think they can sign up for their own account, and now they're building their own referral partner network as well, right? And maybe giving referrals to some other account admin right? So it can kind of grow on itself. Anyway, so we'll have, the reason, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm just curious.
Yeah, and the reason I did this, I couldn't find a good product on the market that did this, that wasn't built for like big channel partners.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, because go back to the sort of AI thing. Are you using a well-known product like a Copilot, for example, Microsoft Copilot, or have you guys gone and built your own one using the libraries
we're using Cursor, which is an editor, a really good editor that allows you to embed AI. You have the AI tools and the AI tools have the context of your application. So you can ask it questions and ask it to build something on top of something else, and it knows what that thing is. So,
yes.
Right. It's really good. We use ChatGPT for generating a lot of the code, or we use OpenAI's 4.0, in Cursor. We do use both. We were using a product called VO for generating the React front end, but it's hard to guide. So I'm using Bolt, which is an application builder that's UI. I've used Bolt and another one called Replit, REPLIT, to try to build the entire app myself, just AI 100%, build this app that does this functionality and then guide it through the process. And they write crappy code. And they get stuck in these mental loops that you can't, it was working and now it breaks, and it has the same error message on 8 iterations. You're trying to fix it and it won't fix it. It's just too frustrating. Plus the code is terrible that they do. But Bolt does a nice job creating the UI. So I'm using Bolt to basically create a click-through UI, and it will build the whole application, but I'm telling it, do not put any logic in it, just create the screens and the navigation. And it's creating a nice UI. It still takes a bit of guiding along and fixing, and then it starts to get off track. So then I got to go do a cut and paste of something I want it to look like this, and I'd say make that look like this, and then it'll start to get it right. But you know, I'm redoing the UI because we were trying to do it all with this VO product, vo.dev, by the way, v0.dev.
Yeah.
And my developer was getting really frustrated using it. So I said, let me just take this on. So I took it on yesterday. I'll be done with the UI probably today and give it back to him. Then I'm going to take that UI, try to get it Figma, one of the Figma AI tools, to generate it in Figma. Then I can take the Figma and put that in the VO tool, and it will build the React front end, the total React front end that matched that Figma perfectly. So this is kind of the process, and probably 3 to 4 days to get a completely React front end UI that's well designed, that supports all the functionality we want. That plus the back end, plus wiring the two together, and pushing it into production, and also, you know, serverless using Lambda functions or cloud function, or whatever your serverless brand is. This is, anyway, that was eye-opening for me, that we're going to actually get a production application out. Then we'll do the SaaS front end, which will probably take another, week, because then you got roles and permissions, sign up and payment processing, but not a month, a week. Right? Now we have total control. This is our app. There's nothing unknown about what we want to accomplish. It's not AI in terms of having any kind of like AI intelligence that we're trying to get a workflow in. It's very nuts and bolts referral partner management, but it's a really pretty application. It's got dashboard widgets and all the functionality you would expect it to have at a very basic level. Later, I'll integrate it with QuickBooks, so that as we start to get payments from clients, then it automatically feeds, sends that payment transaction to the thing and then calculates fees, so that with notifications to the referral partner, right? All the stuff that you would want in an app like that.
So we built Value in Bubble, and I wasn't impressed in how we built it, etc. So we're rebuilding it now, and a lot of the tools you've mentioned, the guy that I'm talking to is using a lot of them. So I was very curious to see how it'd go, and maybe we could do this as a part 2 conversation.
Oh, I'd love to.
So I mean, because I've got enough for the first part, because the part 2 for me is, how do you see your teams changing? How do you see your project approach changing now that you've got this capability?
Dramatically. So the whole team structure is going to change dramatically. Yeah. That would be a very good discussion. Yeah.
So if you don't mind, we'll just tie it up. If you want to just let people know how to get hold of you. And
oh yeah, thank you. Yeah. You can get me at tekyz.com. If you're watching the video, you can see Tekyz spelled over my head. If you're listening to the podcast, then it's TEKYZ, tekyz.com. So you go there, you can get a hold of me by doing the contact us, or reach me, David at tekyz.com. Though please don't put the email in the podcast links, but anybody listen to this that made it to the end, please email me directly at david@tekyz.com.
Will do. Perfect. Thanks so much. Great. Thanks, David. I look forward to chatting with you again.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to our episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please share it with your friends and colleagues. Help us grow our network. Please also check out our website at www.value.work and our product that's on there. It's something we worked really hard on, and we hope that it benefits you.